Okay, so who is the GOAT of F1? Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen? Honestly, I was putting off making this video for a long time, not because I don't have opinions, because, trust me, I have too many opinions. Heck, I even have opinions about things I've never even experienced. But oh boy, is this the war zone, because if you get even one thing wrong, everyone in the comments comes at your throat. So we're gonna do this the civilized way. 4 categories, points awarded, and a verdict at the end that at least half of you are going to absolutely hate. And I'm gonna enjoy every second of it. So let's get into it. Alright lads, here's how we're gonna do this properly. No bullshit participation trophies. 4 categories: winning, stats, records and awards, and the eye test. Championships, 2 points each because that's the whole point of the sport. Win rate gets a 1.5 because it actually rewards greatness, not just I showed up for 400 races. Race wins gets a point because the all-time wins record is its own achievement, but I'm not pretending totals and rates are the same thing, so it gets weighted below win rate. Everything else is 1 point. And whenever I can, I'm using rates, polls percentage, podium percentage, not raw totals. I'm not pretending a guy with 384 starts is the same as one with 236. That's accountant logic, not racing. It's all on screen. Cope in the comments if you disagree. Winning. Right. So, the obvious one, the World Championships, and yes, the big shiny trophies that make the entire world respect you. Starting with Sir Lewis Hamilton with 7 World Championships, 2008 with McLaren, and then 2014, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20 with the GOAT team Mercedes. 7 titles across 2 different teams, summing up 12 years of his career. He is tied with Michael Schumacher for the all-time record, which is a huge achievement if you ask me. Now, Verstappen. 4 World Championships, 2021 to 2024, all with Red Bull. Basically, 4 back-to-back titles, which only Schumacher and Fangio have ever matched or beaten. But here's the thing, we usually forget about 2024. Red Bull wasn't even the fastest car for most of that season. McLaren was cooking, and he still freaking got that title, and honestly, that's not luck. That's just Max being the absolute Chad he is. Now, I obviously have to mention Abu Dhabi 2021. Firstly, if you generally don't have any idea of what I'm about to say, then where the f have you been? And secondly, here's the short version of it. Hamilton had the race absolutely locked up, with hard tires and all the right things. Verstappen pitted for fresh softs under a late safety car, and boom, got to attack on the final lap. And just like that, Max won the title, literally snatched it from Lewis's hands. Half the world went nuts, and still after all these years, it still remains the most controversial finish in modern F1 history. And look, whether you think it was stolen or whatever the fact is, it happened. The title went to Verstappen, and it counts. But 7 titles beats 4. Lewis 2, Max 0. Now look, I told you at the start that I'm weighing rates higher than totals in this video, and I stand by that. But the all-time race wins record is not just a number, it's a legacy milestone. So it gets its own category at 1 point. Lewis has 105 race wins. 105. That is the most by any driver in the history of F1. More than Schumacher, more than Senna, more than Prost, more than literally every person who has sat in one of these cars. This guy won his first season and kept winning for 15 consecutive seasons from 2007 to 2021, a streak that tied with Schumacher for the all-time record. The car ghosted him in 2021 and 2023, but he came back and won again in 2024 before moving to Ferrari. That's not luck, that's a career-long affliction. Now, 71 race wins is absolutely crazy for someone who is only 28 years old, and yes, that's the number of wins Max has right now. The fact that he's 3rd in terms of race wins behind 2 of the greatest drivers to ever live tells you all about his trajectory. The guy overtook Prost, Vettel, and now he's hungry for Schumacher's seat. And the scary thing is, you and me both know he's going to devour that thing. But as of now, Hamilton takes the lead with 105 to 71. And that gap is still the size of Fernando Alonso's entire career win tally. So the point goes to Hamilton. Lewis 3, Max 0. Win rate. Right, quiet down in the back because this is the part where Hamilton fans go silent, like Perez's radio after being told to let Max through. Because Hamilton's win rate sits at 27.3%. That's 105 from 384 starts. And before you say anything, 27% win rate from 384 starts is mind-blowing. Better than Senna, better than Clark, better than anyone to step foot in an F1 car. But Max's win rate is at 30%. 71 wins from 236 starts. And during the period of 2022 to 2023, he was winning over 60% of the freaking races. That's not just a win rate, that's straight up bullying. Now look, the counter argument to this is, well, Lewis had a dominant car, which is partially true, but Max also had a dominant car in 2022 and 2023. The only difference is that Lewis maintained his win rate across a long career, including the seasons where he had an absolute tractor instead of a shiny F1 car. But in pure win rate, the number goes to Max. So finally, a 1.5 to him. Lewis 3, Max 1.5. Statistics. Polls. The thing where you go as fast as physically possible and then everyone claps. Except we're not doing raw poll counts because one of these guys spent a season and a half in what I can only describe as a Red Bull branded tractor at Toro Rosso. So instead of just going 104 versus 48, Hamilton wins, see you next week, we're using a poll rate. Polls as percentage of race entries. This is the one that actually matters. Hamilton, 104 polls from 384 starts, a poll rate of 27.1%. In his first 188 races specifically, that rate was 32.45%, meaning 1 in every 3 Saturdays, the fastest person on the planet was Lewis Hamilton. He passed Senna's record of 65 and then Schumacher's 68, both in 2017, without even blinking. Verstappen, 48 poles from 236 starts, a pole rate of approximately 20.3%, lower. But here's the thing, strip out his Toro Rosso stint where the car had no business near the front row, and his qualifying numbers in a competitive car are elite. And in 2025, he outqualified Tsunoda 26 out of 27 times. The average gap between them was 0.735 seconds. That's not beating your teammate. That is turning him into a cautionary tape every Saturday for a whole year. But even when adjusting for the Toro Rosso years, Hamilton's career qualifying rate is still higher. The point goes to Hamilton. Lewis 4, Max 1.5. Alright folks, buckle up because now we're diving into the stats that actually make you think instead of just counting shiny trophies. Podium percentage. Lewis rose up with 203 podiums from 384 starts for a rock-solid 53%. That's more than half his races ending with him spraying champagne like it's a personal fountain. Not bad for a guy who's been in this circus forever. But Verstappen, 127 podiums from 236 starts, giving him a solid 54%, slightly higher, and that's impressive when you remember he spent his early career in a Toro Rosso that qualified somewhere between the pit wall and the kebab van. Strip that stint and his Red Bull podium rate is just ridiculous. The man turned consistency into an art form. Now, the real spicy one, regulation adaptability. This is where we separate the quick learners from the my car rules merchants. Hamilton has danced through 3 massive rule shakeups: 2009, 2014, and 2022. In 2009, his McLaren was throwing tantrums and he still bagged 2 wins like a boss. 2014 hits and boom, he owns the hybrid era from lap 1. When 2022 arrives, the car turns into a confused shopping trolley and he goes 2 whole years without a win. One era where the machinery straight up ghosted him, not the driver. Verstappen has faced 2 big resets. 2017, when Red Bull finally stopped being mediocre, and 2022, which handed the greatest cheat code car in modern F1 history. So yeah, that one was less character building. But his 2024 and 2025 title scraps in non-dominant cars? Proper evidence. The guy's adapting like a chameleon on roller skates. Podium rate edges towards Verstappen by a whisker. Adaptability is too close to call. Both legends have shown they can tango with new rules. We split this one right down the middle. 1 point each. Lewis 5, Max 2.5. Okay, so this is the part where both fan bases are going to be annoyed at me simultaneously, which is how I know I'm getting it right. Normally, people just go with who beats their teammate more, like it's some ultimate flex. But nah, we're going to do it properly here. We are checking the margin, the quality of the opponent, and whether the car situation actually cuts both ways. Fair is fair, or this is not analysis. This is just picking a side and adding graphs for decoration. Look at Verstappen versus Perez in 2023. Max absolutely smoked him, 20-2 in head-to-head races with a point gap so big it was basically its own Netflix series. Perez was closer to Logan Sargent and his lonely single point than he was to Verstappen. Brutal. But remember, Red Bull won 21 out of 22 races that year. It was not a car, it was a cheat code with wheels. Destroying your teammate in the most dominant machine in F1 history is impressive, sure, but it's like beating your teammate at basketball when you're wearing rocket boots. Now, Hamilton versus Rosberg. 3 full seasons, same equipment, no number 2 nonsense. Rosberg was proper world champion material. He actually took the title in 2016. Hamilton still beat him to the championship in 2014 and 2015 with margins of 67 and 59 points. In equal Vehicle cars in a guy good enough to be the champion? Hamilton came out on top 2 years out of 3. That's the real gold standard teammate battle. And Hamilton's track record goes deeper. He matched Alonso, a double world champion in his rookie season. He bossed Bottas for years. Even when Russell edged him in 2024, Hamilton had already signed for Ferrari and admitted his head was already halfway to Maranello. We have all mentally quit a job before. It's fine. Verstappen's teammate dominance is historically savage, but it happened in cars that turned the other guy into a confused spectator. Hamilton did it against stronger opponents in much fairer fights. Point goes to Sir Lewis on this one. Lewis 6, Max 2.5. Records and awards. Let's just go through this. Most race wins ever. Lewis, 105. Most pole positions ever. Lewis, 104. Most podium finishes ever. Lewis, 203. Most front row starts ever. Lewis, 180. Most wins at a singular circuit ever. Lewis, 9 at Silverstone. First driver to win beyond their 300th start. Won in a race 16 out of his 18 seasons, including 15 consecutive winning seasons from 2007 to 2021, a streak tied with Schumacher for the all-time record. Only 2022 and 2023 broke that run, and he came straight back and won again in 2024.
I'll be back.
The World Championship record is equalled. Lewis Hamilton wins the Turkish Grand Prix and is a 7-time champion of the world.
No one else has come close to that kind of longevity.
How? Hold on, bro. How?
Oh, and by the way, he's also the first and only black driver in F1 history, which isn't a racing stat, but it's part of the record. And if we're talking about legacy, it belongs in this conversation. Now here's the thing, while Lewis owns the all-time volume records, Verstappen owns the peak season records, and they're completely unhinged. 2023, 19 wins from 22 races. That's an 86.4% win rate across the entire season. The previous record held by Alberto Ascari from 1952 was 75%. Max didn't just break it, he smashed it by over 10% across 3 times as many races. First driver in F1 history to win 10 consecutive Grand Prix. First driver to lead over 1,000 laps in a single season. He finished the year on 1,003, the biggest margin over his teammate ever, 290 points. Clinched the title with 6 races still to run. His 2022 season also set the record for the most wins in a season before 2023 happened, and he broke his own record. That's the kind of driver he is.
What?
And then, the youngest winner in F1 history, Spanish Grand Prix 2016, 18 years and 228 days old. That record still holds. Guinness confirmed it. It's not going anywhere.
It was May the 22nd last year.
So I have no choice but to split this one in 2. Lewis, 6.5, Max, 3. Awards. Lewis Hamilton, multiple Laureus World Sportsman of the Year wins, which is the general sports award that basically no race driver ever wins. Knighted Sir Lewis Hamilton. CBE before that. FIA recognition across his career. Max, on the other hand, FIA Formula 1 Driver of the Year 4 consecutive times, 2021 through 2024, widely regarded by his peers as the fastest driver currently on the grid. Franz Tost, his old Toro Rosso team principal, called him the fastest driver in Formula 1, before he'd ever win a title. This one I'm splitting again. Hamilton's volume of the all-time records is extraordinary. Verstappen's peak season records are equally extraordinary. They measure different things. A point each, and the court is adjourned. Lewis 7, Max 3.5. The last but not the least criteria we will be weighing these two fans in is the eye test. Basically, the part where the data doesn't matter anymore. And before any one of you say, the data always matters, Polsey, no.
Stop it.
Sometimes you just have to watch the thing and feel it. Here's how I describe Lewis Hamilton at his absolute peak. Imagine a driver who could get into literally any car in any condition and make it do things it shouldn't be able to do. Hamilton in the rain doesn't look like a driver fighting the car. It looks like the car is scared of him. Silverstone, 2008, the guy was lapping a minute ahead of the field in a monsoon and he looked bored doing it. Turkey, 2022, nursing tires that should have been in a bin 20 laps earlier and somehow building a 30-second gap? That's not a race driver. That's witchcraft. And Hamilton's technical intelligence is genuinely underrated. He would get in a car on an installation lap and tell the engineers what aerodynamic adjustments needed to be made. The Mercedes engineers have said publicly that Hamilton's feedback and his desire to understand the car at a molecular level is a huge part of why they dominated for a decade. He didn't just drive the car. He built the car. Now, Max Verstappen. If Hamilton is surgical, Max is a force of nature. There's a reason Jenson Button called him the fastest Formula One driver ever. And there's a reason people compare his instincts to Senna, because there are moments where he does things in a racing car that don't look physically possible. Interlagos, 2016, 19 years old, spins 360 degrees on the pit straight in the rain, catches it, and then immediately makes a pass around the outside of a championship leader. That's not driving. That's improvisation. That's jazz. The thing about Verstappen that I don't think gets talked about enough is the car control under pressure.
Extraordinary drive from this teenager. Can Verstappen not?
His engineers and technical analysts have explained that he creates a tiny moment of stability between changes of direction in a corner of a fraction of a second where the car is balanced that allows him to carry more speed than any rival. It's so subtle, most people can't even see it on the data, but it means that he extracts pace from a car that other elite drivers in the same machinery simply cannot find.
Nice.
Brazil 2024, starting from 17th on the grid in wet conditions, winning the damn race by nearly 20 seconds, with analysts comparing it live to Senna. This is a driver who's been compared to Senna more than once in real time during an actual race, not in a YouTube video. During the race. And honestly, that speaks for itself. Both these guys make you put your phone down. Both of them have given me moments where I forgot to breathe. Splitting this one down the middle. Once again, a point for each. Lewis, 7.5, Max, 4. Okay. So, I love this part because this is where the actual Formula One people who have seen these two up close and know exactly what they're talking about step in. And it's all over the place. Nico Rosberg, the man who beat Lewis Hamilton in the 2016 World Championship in the same car, who knows exactly how fast Hamilton is, has said his personal GOAT list goes Hamilton, Verstappen, Senna, Fangio, Schumacher. Lewis is first. Let that sink in. That's Rosberg, his former teammate, the guy he spent 3 years racing wheel to wheel against. Take that for what it is. Then Jenson Button, Lewis's McLaren teammate, said in 2019 that Verstappen is the fastest F1 driver ever. Now, he said this before Hamilton had won the last 3 titles, which in this context matters, but still. Fernando Alonso, who is my personal GOAT, by the way, and I will not be taking questions, was asked by Pedro de la Rosa who the greatest F1 driver ever was. De la Rosa gave hints, Alonso guessed, Max. De la Rosa said no, Alonso guessed a few more times. The answer was Alonso himself, which is the most Fernando Alonso way to answer that question, and I love him for it.
Nice.
Lewis on Max early on in 2016 says his abilities at the core are fantastic, diplomatic, respectful, and very Hamilton. Verstappen on Hamilton, also in 2016, when asked who the best drivers on the grid were, said Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. They are simply the best drivers at the moment. This was before Verstappen had won a single championship. He knew exactly where the bar was. The fan split on this is generational, by the way. If you grew up watching the hybrid era, you probably lean Hamilton.
Could be the lead going for Hamilton. They are side by side. Hamilton holds his nerve and
If you came to F1 during or after 2021, you probably lean towards Max. Neither side is wrong. Both sides are exhausting to deal with, especially in a comment section. Before we wrap up, we have to talk about the names that are going to flood my comments the moment I declare a winner, because the GOAT debate in F1 doesn't start in 2007. It starts in 1950. Juan Manuel Fangio, 5 world championships between 1951 and 1957, won 47% of the races he entered. His career win rate makes both Hamilton and Verstappen look average. But here's the thing, he raced 51 times total. Hamilton has raced 384 times. It's almost impossible to do a fair comparison across that gap in a sample size. What you can say is that within his era, Fangio was as dominant as anyone who has ever held a steering wheel. And the era he drove in was one where making a mistake didn't mean a 5-second penalty, it meant dying. That never leaves the conversation. Ayrton Senna, on the other hand, 3 championships, killed at Imola in 1994 before he ever got the chance to show what his career would become with a Williams. That was, at that point, the fastest car on the grid. His pole position rate was 40% of race entries. Even Hamilton, with 104 poles, didn't reach that percentage. And when Verstappen made that pass in Interlagos in 2016, commentators compared him to Senna on the live broadcast. That's the standard Senna still sets. Michael Schumacher, 7 championships, 91 wins from 308 starts, a 29.5% win rate. His 2022 and 2024 seasons were the second and third most dominant in history. The only thing above them is Verstappen's 2023. He built Ferrari from a struggling team into a dynasty through sheer force of will and an obsessive work ethic that the engineers still talk about 20 years later. And then he came back in 2012 and was, frankly, pretty decent, which no one gives him credit for. The honest answer to all of this is that a cross-era comparison is fundamentally impossible. The cars are different, the circuits are different, the safety is different, the calendar length is different, the point systems are different. You can't fairly rank Fangio against Hamilton any more than you can fairly rank a 1950s boxer against a 2020s MMA fighter. What you can say about this is that within their own eras, every driver on this list was the benchmark, and that has to count for something. Alright, let's run through the scoreboard. Championships, 2 points. Lewis. Race wins, 1 point. Lewis. Win rate, 1.5 points. Max. Qualifying rate, Lewis. Podium percentage and adaptability, split. Teammates, Hamilton. Records and awards, split. Eye test, split. Final score, Lewis, 7.5, Max, 4. Hamilton wins. On this scoreboard in May 2026, Lewis Hamilton takes the crown as the Formula One GOAT. But this number is a snapshot, not the full painting. It's right now, not forever. Verstappen is already bossing the categories that actually level the playing field. Win rate, podium percentage. The more you control for time and fair fights, the more he pulls ahead, and that's no accident. Max is still only 28 years old. Hamilton built his legend on 18 seasons of showing up elite no matter what they threw at him. New rules, new tires, new teammates, new teams. That's the kind of longevity that is straight up superhero stuff, and it deserves mad respect. But Verstappen has already bagged 4 world titles, dropped the most dominant season ever, set the single season wins record, and probably should have made it 5 in 2025 if 2 points had gone the other way. He's putting up numbers at 28 Hamilton never touched at the same age. Give him another 6 or 7 years in proper machinery and this scoreboard doesn't just shift, it might just do a full backflip. So here's where I land. Lewis Hamilton is statistically the king of Formula One. The record books, the volume, the cross-era mastery, and that insane career length, unmatched. Max Verstappen is the best racing driver on the planet right now. His peak, what he did in 2023, and in that 2024 non-dominant car might already be the greatest stretches of pure driving the sport has ever seen. The GOAT of the history books? Hamilton. The most terrifying man on a Sunday afternoon in 2026? Verstappen. And honestly, that right there is exactly why this is the greatest debate in the entire history of the sport. Long may it rage. That is the definitive F1 GOAT comparison. I have now given both fan bases enough material to write me a 47-paragraph essay explaining why I'm wrong, and I'm genuinely looking forward to reading all of them. If you want to see us do a Schumacher versus Senna, or a full 4-way breakdown with Fangio and Prost in the mix, tell me in the comments. If this gets enough views, we'll do it. If it doesn't, I'll pretend I never made this video and delete it from my memory. Like and subscribe if this was worth your time. I'm Polsey, and this has been my F1 addiction, and I'll see you in the next one.